ourselves, and immortality. The sound of someone trying to drag a heavy box as quietly as possible was very distracting. Amelia strove to maintain poise, but the words in her head tumbled and fragmented, and were gone. She put down her pen with a pointed click, and turned round in her chair. "Sorry, Amelia." Diogenes did not sound sorry. He had his sleeves rolled up and was rooting around through some of the storage chests that sat under the bookshelves. "What are you working on?" "A poem about death," she replied flatly. "Or I was, until someone decided they needed to rearrange the library right this second. Now I'm talking to you." "Sorry again." He still did not sound sorry. "But there's been news. The Archmage has called the Court of Rope together. All three of them. For the Solstice. Marcus wants us to be ready to offer tribute." "I thought the Queen was still under enmity." Amelia had not been keeping track. "Not since last winter," replied Diogenes cheerily. He ran his finger through the frosted tips of his bleached hair, and then swore quietly as he realized he'd caked his head in dust. "Queen and knight at neutrality. King remains Amatus." "That isn't a word," Amelia corrected her coven-mate on reflex, more out of pedantic habit than any confidence he would stop making up words. "Definitely. All three of them. Not just the king." Poise alone kept Amelia's tone neutral. "Hag Queen and Burnt Prince as well? In the same parley?" Diogenes was only half listening, busy selecting scrolls and stuffing them into the pockets in his sash. "Well, the Heliopticon says it's all three of them. Tupentes from Moonwell Spire says it's as monarchs as well, if that matters." It did in fact matter. Amelia caught herself nibbling her thumbnail, and it took an effort to put her hand back in her lap. "How long has it been since all three of them have been approached together?" she asked mildly. "As the court, I mean, rather than individually?" "Years, I suppose. I hadn't really given it any thought." "Why?" "No reason, just thinking out loud." She did not let her eyes stray to the shelf where the tome of ruinous omens lay innocently on its side, fat with visionary dreams and carefully curated advice about the Court of the Three, and the dangers of getting entangled with them. "I just seem to recall that last time they were all together, it caused a bit of a fuss. But I'm sure this time it will be absolutely fine." Overview. 6 Eternals have sent emissaries to Anvil, apparently in response to plenipotentiary messages from the Imperial Archmages. 5 have agreed to meetings of one kind or another, either in person or via emissaries. The other has provided messages, opportunities, or gifts of one type or another. As the winter solstice approaches, the Eternals respond to the plenipotentiary messages of the 6 Archmages. Each of the 6 is empowered to send a single message to an Eternal of their realm each season, with a certain expectation of some kind of response. Some Eternals will arrange a parley of some kind, a personal meeting with themselves, or more commonly one of their favoured lieutenants. Others may take more direct action, offering opportunities to secure boons, or enlist the Eternal's power to change the Empire in some way. Sometimes they decline the offer of meetings or boons, but even then they are likely to provide their reasons for doing so. Messengers representing 6 Eternals have come to the Empire from their Eternal patrons, detailing the response to each plenipotentiary missive. Before a house. The Sovereign Lord of the City of Bridges welcomes the plenipotentiary of the Autumn Archmage. A parley will take place in a chamber reached via the Hall of Worlds, at a time to be confirmed on Saturday during the summit. Prospero requests the Archmage bring someone capable of speaking for the Celestial Arch along with them. The Archmage may include up to 2 others as part of their entourage. The current Archmage of Autumn is Vosk of Zenith Ascendant. It has been a little over 2 years since last a formal emissary of the City of Bridges visited the Empire. The Minotaur, resplendent in robes of incarnadine and viridian, again visits the Castle of Thorns, rather than visiting the hub. Their message is short and devoid of unnecessary details. It seems that the sovereign lord of the City of Bridges requests formal parley with Vosk of Zenith Ascendant, the new Archmage of Autumn. The meeting will take place in a chamber set aside for the purpose, at a time to be confirmed on Saturday during the coming winter solstice. The main topic of conversation will be the matter of ritual magic. Threadweaver is interested to hear how the Archmage believes the City of Bridges might provide support to the Imperial War Machine in the manner Vosk has outlined, although the Minotaur is quick to point out that nothing is promised. On the matter of promises, however, the Reckoner of Ebony and Bone is keen to conclude the matter of the favour owed by the Celestial Arch, following his provision of a meeting with the people of Skora. It is time for that favour to be called in, and as such, Vosk is requested to bring a member of the Conclave Order, with the authority to discuss such matters, to the parley. As with the favour provided to the Rod and Shield, which was repaid by the dissemination of a military ritual to the magician princes of Yarm, the expectation is that the repayment will be of a commensurate value to the favour provided. There are provisions for up to 2 others, secretaries, clerks, or scriveners as the Archmage deems appropriate. The agenda for the meeting is set, however, and Prospero is unlikely to be amused by attempts to introduce new matters for discussion once it begins. I would not stop. Siacher offers parley to the Archmage of Spring at a time to be confirmed on Friday or Saturday during the summit. The Marvath will discuss the matter of destruction the Archmage has raised. 3 new rituals have appeared in Urizen lore without warning, apparently as a gift to Ibis Briarheart. The current Archmage of Spring is Ibis Briarheart. During some of the worst weather of the early winter, a creature emerges from the Imperial Regio at Anvil. It is a Tempest, one of the children of Maelstrom. A storm-given flesh, a thing of barely contained disruptive force. This one is a little different to those encountered on battlefields supporting the Children of Rex. It bears a staff of Tempest Jade, and wears an open dark green robe that evokes the wind-tossed breakers of the Bay of Katazar. It jerks and twitches in time to some inaudible rhythm only it can hear, moving through Anvil with impressive directness. Anyone who gets in its way, even slightly, is hurled aside without warning. By the time it reaches the hub, there are magistrates and militia waiting for it. It does not waste time on formalities, simply delivering its message to anyone who is near enough to hear its loud, rumbling words. Thunder that speaks has heard the words of Ibis Briarheart. She accepts the petition for parley. There will be an opportunity for the Archmage of Spring to speak with her favoured lieutenant, the Marvath, who is empowered to talk of the destruction desired by Briarheart. That meeting will take place on Friday evening at a time to be confirmed, in a chamber created for the purpose. Only the Archmages themselves, or their proxy if they cannot come themselves, is invited to attend. There will be no talk of Grendel, nor of Wreckers, nothing to say about Sarvos, nor Asavea, nor the Lords of Winter. The matter the Hurricane Queen is interested in is the devastation, slaughter, and loot that the Archmage has proposed. She will offer her gift, if the Archmage is strong enough to accept it. Indeed, she has provided gifts to the people of Urzen, as Briarheart has asked. Message delivered. The Tempest returns by the same direct route that it arrived, this time with an armed escort that it does not acknowledge in any way. It disappears through the gate at the heart of the Imperial Regio, with neither another word nor a backward glance. Civility. The thrice-cursed court accept the offer of parley. They will accept a delegation from Anvil at midnight on Friday. Each of the 3 has matters of interest to them. The current keeper of Tharim's throne, Claudia Varkulova Remiswav, is invited to join the courtiers of the thrice-cursed to help facilitate the meeting. The current Archmage of Winter is Amathias Icebreaker Ankarian, although they have indicated their intent to retire. On the evening of the first day of winter proper, the air is sharp with the promise of snow and ice, and a messenger arrives at Anvil. It comes not from the Imperial Regio, but along the main road that runs through the settlement. It takes its time, savouring the sights and sounds, and pausing to observe folk about their early evening business. It is clearly a creature of the realms, and of the Winter Realm in particular. Pallid-skinned, with lengths of rusted metal woven into and out of its flesh, it observes with empty eye sockets that nonetheless seem to see everything that transpires. A foul aura surrounds it, and those who get too close feel their skin crawling, that feeling of being on the edge of sleep and hearing a noise from a part of the room you know to be empty. Chained to its wrist is a book, the binding of which does not bear close inspection by those of a faint heart or weak stomach. Weakness and the Hall of Worlds. The last time all three members of the thrice-cursed court were together, they appeared in the Hall of Worlds. Their departure triggered an unpleasant effect. Everyone in the Hall of Worlds was struck with weakness. There's no indication this was done on purpose. It might just be an effect of the thrice-cursed monarchs withdrawing their presence from the hall. There's also no indication that this will happen again, but it is something to be aware of. But to be on the safe side, it's worth a reminder that one cannot leave the Hall of Worlds while subject to weakness, because one cannot cast Operate Portal. It is important to remember that you can only move yourself between the Hall of Worlds and Anvil, and vice versa, with the Operate Portal spell. The Ambassadorial Gatekeeper ritual allows other options, but must either be cast in advance, or performed in the Hall of Worlds. It's also tricky to remove weakness while one's experiencing it, given the way it restricts a character's abilities. The most reliable way would be to use a potion such as Fever Fail Elixir, or Maledict's Medicament. A magician who does so would then be free to cast the Purify spell, or take part in a ritual such as Renewed Strength of the New Day, to help their fellows overcome any lingering curse. It's also important to remember that, as with venom, weakness does not go away naturally. It must be treated in some way before it is removed. Again, there's no particular reason to believe this may become an issue, but this is as good a time as any to remind people of the dangers of being weakened while in the Hall of Worlds. When it reaches the hub, it bows low and begins to read from the book. It bears a greeting from the Court of Broken Hearts, from the King in Chains, from the Prince of Ashes, and from the Queen of Nails. They accept the invitation of the Archmage of Winter. They also express their regret. They have heard that the Archmage of Winter, Amatius Icebreaker Ancarian, has chosen to step away from their powerful position to pursue other interests. Amatius was a worthy Archmage, say the three, and whomever steps up to replace them will surely have their work cut out for them, given how difficult the other Eternals of the Winter Realm can be to deal with. Regardless, they offer formal parley on Friday night, at midnight, during the coming summit. The new Archmage may bring 2 others as their aides if they wish. In addition to the Archmage, the Keeper of Thalim's throne, Claudia Varkulova Remisław, is invited to attend as a guest of the king. During the parley they may speak as they see fit, with no constraints placed on them by the Archmage. They may bring a servant of their own along if they desire. The Keeper of Thalim's throne is also empowered to bring 1 other specific person if they wish. The Marcher General of the Drakes, William Guildenstern. Thalim leaves it entirely to Claudia's discretion whether they believe Guildenstern will provide any benefit to the parley. As to the parley itself, each of the 3 monarchs of the Court of Rope has topics of interest to them. The King in Chains and his lieutenant, Lord Captain Catanatus, will discuss the matter of the wicked folk of Skura and the murder of Obligatus. The Prince of Ashes will speak of the clever artisans of Skura and of knights and Reggio, as well as on the matter of the Valorn. The Queen of Nails will speak of the peculiar folk of Skura, the boon of Catena, and of other gifts that the court are minded to offer to their imperial friends. These gifts will not, however, include the ritual to unleash wildfire. The Empire has proved reticent to actually use the magical law that the Court of Locked Doors has offered in recent years, and while Armand Remiswav, who was Remis, is beloved of the court, they would be better served seeking other boons. In response to questions or requests for clarification, the messenger simply smiles and shakes their head. Once they have finished delivering their messages, they depart Anvil the way they came, not via the Imperial Regio, but along the road leading out of the town. Those few brave enough to follow a herald of the thrice-cursed soon lose it as the evening darkens into night and the first curtains of snow close around it. Tribute collectors. Surut intends to send tribute collectors to Anvil prior to the parley. These tribute collectors are due to arrive at Anvil around 2200 on Friday. They are only interested in speaking to warriors, whatever that means. There is another matter to consider. The Burnt Knight intends to send some of his heralds to Anvil before the parley proper to collect tribute. They will be looking for warriors, and the herald stresses they must be warriors, prepared to accept a tiny portion of Surut's curse for a time. This will apparently involve the herald knights injuring the arms or legs of those prepared to receive their strike. They may arrange for physics to be on hand if they wish. The important thing is the willingness to offer tribute. The herald is closed-mouthed about the details of this peculiar ceremony. They do let slip, however, that this is about the fact that the thrice-cursed court all too often deals only with magicians. This may be acceptable to the throne-bound and the contemptuous, but the Ashen Prince values the raw strength of the warrior more than he does honeyed words or clever magic. Before departing, the herald also mentions that Surut is expecting that there will be at least some warriors prepared to show respect to him. It is not stated explicitly, but there is a subtext that Surut would likely be displeased to discover that the Empire is not willing to offer sufficient tribute, and this will directly impact his mood in the parley. And Eternity. Yelenwe has responded to a request for parley from the Archmage of Day. A herald of Yelenwe named Trenembra of the Strings will visit the Hall of Worlds during the Arcane Colloquium. In addition to the Archmage of Day, Yelenwe has requested that the High Bard of the Empire be there. The current Archmage of Day is Skywise Grolka. On a blustery autumn day, a quiet herald with mottled silver and indigo scales appears at the hub. They arrive without comment, and the first anyone is aware of them is when, seated on a three-legged stool, they start to play quiet notes on their cerulean and welt-silver lyre. Their harmonious melody quells the often garrulous crowds in the hub. As they pluck their soothing strings, they deliver their message from the mistress of music. Z has heard the words of the Archmage of Day, and seen the results of their cooperation at Bulgakov, and in the White Wood. Yet there are limits to what Yelenwe can achieve, and here the herald's music turns mournful, bringing a tear to the eye of all save the most hard-hearted. The Sun Gate in Chronomark is beyond the power of Z of the Perfect Morning. According to her, the Sun Gate is not a scar, some residue of the harm the Oblivion Flame inflicts upon the world. Rather, it is an open wound, a thing directly supported by the disharmonious fury of the end of songs. The howling empty heart of the light destructive cannot be moved by the music of the dove. There is no way to close the Sun Gate, or to allow mortals to approach the fane of such relentless, irresistible hatred. If things change in the future, then fate may deliver an opportunity to deal with this burning beacon of despite. But for now, there is nothing to be done but avoid it. The herald's notes fall silent, and they bow their scaled head for several moments in contemplation. When their music resumes, it has a more hopeful tone. When it comes to the white wood and its song, though, the shape of sound can achieve something a little more wholesome. She intends to send her herald, Trenembra of the Strings, to the Hall of Worlds during the Arcane Colloquium. Once the Archmage of Day has completed their hosting duties, there will be a chance to discuss matters. The Eternal asks that the High Bard of the Empire also be there, if possible. There will be discussion of musical instruments and the role that music can play in uplifting the spirit and honing understanding of the world. Past the setting sun. Yelenwe proposes to serve as patron for a house of harmonious music in Skarsind. Z wishes the Archmage and High Bard to consider how to help those threatened by the cold sun. The harmonious chorister proposes the construction of a hall of music in the Whitewood, a place where Imperial citizens can come together to study magic, especially as it relates to the realm of sea and sky, and the pursuit of harmony. The Herald is not clear on what precisely this means. This is partly the matter that is to be discussed with the Archmage and the High Bard, but they do deliver plans for the structure. It appears to be a spacious hall, designed to complement the natural beauty of the area, with plenty of room for musical study and performance. The Hall of Music is an edifice that would require 15 wains of weirwood, 10 wains of mithril, 10 rings of ilium, and 75 crowns to construct, and would need to be conceded to Yelenwe. This last point raises a few eyebrows, but the Herald gently suggests that questions would be better held until Trenembra of the Strings can answer them with more authority. There is another matter that Z of the Dawn wishes to speak of. The Oblivion flame has been kindled again in the mortal world. Its creatures have erupted into lands torn by war, suspicion, and disharmony. It rampages unchecked, destroying and killing without pause. Cold Sun has learned much from its recent incursion into the Empire, and Yelenwe asks that the Archmage and the High Bard use all their influence to encourage the Imperial Senate to offer whatever aid the Empire can spare to the people of both the Commonwealth and Yarm, both of whom are facing a storm that the Empire alone has successfully weathered. Again, there will be a chance to talk about this with Trenembra of the Strings. Only Gossamer, my gown. The Whisper Gallery have responded to the request for parley from the Archmage of Night. They intend to take possession of the Hall of Worlds late on Saturday. Exact details of what will be discussed, and precisely who with, are not clear. The current Archmage of Night is Bella Vicente d'Apulian. It is not a herald that arrives at Anvil as autumn ages toward winter, but an orc from distant Apulian. She comes in the dramaturgical guise of the mountebank, or perhaps more correctly sailor. Of particular note is her cloak, which seems to billow around her with a life of its own, and whose hood does a remarkable job of concealing her identity even without her mask, a crudely carved piece of driftwood, whose simplicity seems quite at odds with her flamboyant garb. She comes as a messenger of the seers of the empty thrones, the repairers of reputation, the chiaroscuran courtiers of the echoed fall, the Whisper Gallery. They have received the art of sweet Bella Vicente d'Apulian, presumably, the delicious Archmage of Night. The specific requests contained within have piqued their interest. They choose to accede, and will send their sommelier to meet with the Archmage and any other Imperial magicians who wish to be present, late on Saturday night in the Hall of Worlds. The weavers of the improbable loom will reach out to that place shortly before the meeting, and fashion it suitable to their needs. They presume the Archmage understands their need to do so. They do, however, place stipulations on the parley. All those who attend must be masked. Those who do not accept this requirement will find they are unable to enter the hall, and will instead find themselves returning to Anvil. This misdirection of the paths between Anvil and the Hall of Worlds will persist until the parley, and it will be a parley, has been completed. They are especially interested in seeing certain folk attend. In addition to Sweet Bella, they invite the wise Fausta, Grand Master Silver Chalice, the ambitious Genevieve Barossa de Apulian, Senator for Spiral, and cunning Raphael Barossa de Apulian, Custodian of Legacy, the perceptive Mikhail Reskovich, High Bard, and the hateful Morgan Waystone Path, Speaker of the Magpies. If they are in attendance, they may accompany the Archmage into the hall as part of their entourage. The sommelier has words to convey to each, from the Praetori Exilium in Littore. Delightful Bella has, with honeyed words, asked for aid in uncovering secrets, and the lieges of the gallery shall be interested to see whether they are successful in doing so. There may be talk of Axos, the fall of the Empire of Dreams, and the Spider of Lost Days. There may be talk of the War of Whispers, and of the destruction of the Magpies, and of the whispering shadow courtiers. The message is vague, perhaps unsurprisingly. On one matter, though, the Orc is quite clear. The Whisper Gallery are not friends of, or allies to, the Empire of Vesna Borkovna Proknost, the Throne of Pumpkins. Imperial thieves are too keen to drag secrets from the shadowed places of the world and expose them to the harsh noonlight. The court continues to oppose them wherever they can, and will urge others to do so. The enmity they bear against the secret slaughterers has not been slaked, not even a little. However, for this single night at the winter solstice, there will be a chance for good-mannered discussion. Things change, and while the enmity of the court has not lessened, the shape it takes is as mutable as anything else drowned in the shadows. With that in mind, any members of the militia, or any magistrates, who attempt to exert their authority over the people visiting their friends in the Court of Disrule will be ejected. They are welcome as long as they come masked and remain civil, but any who attempt to harass or impose boundaries on their fellow citizens will find the patience of the dancers of the Gossamer Pavane extremely limited. With that, the Orc bows politely and takes her leave. A pair of magistrates stand ready outside the hub to ask her some significant questions. But almost as soon as she steps out of the tent, she is mobbed by 24 figures dressed identically in the same voluminous cloak. The shapes wheel around each other, and before the magistrates can do much more than raise the alarm, each of them races off in a different direction. While several of these interlopers are caught, they are imperial citizens from every nation, a mix of humans and orcs. The only thing they have in common is that they are all actors, who say they had been paid for a unique thespian opportunity. None of them have ever met before. Each was recruited by a different agent, and they all resolutely claim to have no idea they were dealing with the Whisper Gallery. Of the Orc who delivered the message of the Whisper Gallery, there is no sign. Participation. Parley. Anyone who wants to visit the Hall of Worlds during the parley must wear a mask. While in the Hall of Worlds during the parley, it is impossible to remove a mask. Everyone in the Hall of Worlds during the parley experiences a role-playing effect. Additional options exist for leaving the parley. The Whisper Gallery are using the invitation to parley to twist the gate that leads to the Hall of Worlds. Anyone who is not masked in some way will be unable to reach the meeting. Anyone who enters the Hall of Worlds will find that they cannot remove their mask. It is impossible for anyone to take their own or another character's mask off while the parley is underway. Veils can also be used, provided they cover the entire face. Furthermore, everyone in the Hall of Worlds will experience a role-playing effect. Your mask represents your true face, and you find it easy to act in accordance with its identity. This effect becomes more pronounced as the parley continues. The dramaturgical personae offers some suggestions as to role-playing effects tied to the traditional roles, but it is up to you how you interpret the identity your mask represents. The effect fades within a few minutes of leaving the Hall of Worlds. The twisting of the paths to and from the Hall of Worlds has a second effect. Anyone leaving the Hall of Worlds can choose to go immediately to the out-of-character area rather than return to Anvil directly. They're free to come back into play through the entrance between the out-of-character area and anvil if they wish. This doesn't represent teleportation, but rather the character being escorted, unseen, by heralds wreathed in night magic, until they reach the relative safety to the alleys of Outer Anvil, a clear effort from the Whisper Gallery to stymie attempts to intercept, search, or detain anyone visiting their parley. During the parley, any herald of the Whisper Gallery may call curse against anyone attempting to disrupt the meeting. If this is done, the target should immediately leave the Hall of Worlds by the nearest exit and return to Anvil. They are unable to enter the Hall of Worlds again until time out. Finally, we ask all participants to be mindful of our conduct rules around role-playing conflict, especially those concerning physical intimidation. Cornice. Adamant has declined a formal parley from the Archmage of Summer. They have made a number of proposals relating to ritual magic. The current Archmage of Summer is Morella of the Twisted Rose. There is, of course, a sizable contingent of koboldi busy at Anvil following the autumn equinox. While they are mostly focused on anchoring the new structure, one of them takes time out of their schedule to visit the hub. A cheerful, friendly individual, with silver scales buffed to a mirror sheen, they wear a splendid golden coat inlaid with hundreds of tiny gemstones that twinkle and glitter as they move. Somewhat apologetically, they indicate that they have been charged with delivering a message from the King under the Mountain. In response to the plenipotentiary of the Archmage of Summer, it is, they warn, a fairly mixed bag, all things told. The koboldi delivers the bad news first, to get it out of the way so that one can focus on happier things. While the King under the Mountain would be happy to see more great fortresses of white granite built in northern Verushka, they are concerned that the Varazi do not see the bigger picture. The Court of Adamant might help make a fortress larger, more impressive, or harder to destroy. They might help it be built more swiftly. They might even aid in enchanting it so it can be more easily repaired, or its garrison granted additional strength. The one thing they are not going to do is make it cheaper. As the koboldi says philosophically, you really don't want to cut corners when you're building something that's meant to withstand armies, do you? The request to intercede with Imperial roads is not something Adamant is interested in at the moment. The Senate is doing a wonderful job repairing and maintaining the Grand Highways, says the koboldi. Yet the ruinous magic of spring, the koboldi shudders at the thought of it, has a way of tearing down even those things crafted from the strongest mundane materials. Infusing an entire empire's worth of roads with adamant, even the pale shadow of true adamant that can be worked in the mortal world, would take a massive effort and not be achieved quickly. For something as mundane and lacking in majesty as a network of roads? Is such an endeavour worthy of the King under the Mountain? It isn't impossible to achieve, but would require a great deal of fast talk, and likely involve the kind of imperial enchantment that has been illegal since the interdiction of Cassandra y Pereira y Erego made such things a crime. Finally, on the matter of the Ashen Flame, the Archmage must understand that there is no shortage of covens and individual magicians seeking the patronage of Shiraz on the Adamant throne. Their master is not uninterested, but at the moment there is little to make that coven stand out. If the Ashen Flame is serious about impressing Adamant, says the koboldi, they should prevail on the Archmage of Summer to arrange a meeting on their behalf with some of Adamant's assessors. They should outline what they actually want, and why Adamant should give it to them. If this is the sole purpose of a plenipotentiary missive, the Master of Gnomes is much more likely to be amenable to honouring that request. Throne of the Mountains. Adamant offers an arcane projection that might be codified to conjure a powerful castle from his domain. Unlike the frozen citadel of Cathan Kane, the conjured fort would focus on projecting a single region of hills. In return for their aid, they request that certain titles have their powers expanded. All 4 titles could be amended with a single Senate motion. After all that negativity, the Dragon of Stone is interested to hear the request of Joseph of the Ashen Flame regarding the conjuration of actual citadels, rather than simple castles that simply claim to be citadels. It is within the power of the imperishable potentate to do so, Adamant is prepared to provide a document that can serve as the basis for a ritual called the Throne of the Mountains that could be codified at any Imperial College of Magic. It would conjure a powerful defensive structure from the domain of Adamant that would offer superlative protection to the region of hills where the enchantment was cast. This defense would make it significantly harder for an enemy army to claim the region, and they would find attempts to do so particularly punishing. Beyond that, the Koboldi provides no other details. A little cross-questioning from a member of the Unfettered Mind who happens to be present leaves them with the distinct impression that the Koboldi is outlining something similar in basic outline to the Basalt Citadel, but for enchanting hills or mountains. Attempts to get a more specific explanation just send the Koboldi off into a tangent about how great fortifications are in general. In return for this boon, the Stone King wishes to see the powers of certain Imperial titles amended. At the moment, the epic builders of the Empire often have little lists of things they can and cannot build. Clearly an oversight, suggests the cheerful Koboldi. The Throne of Adamant simply wishes the Imperial Senate to amend the powers of the Master of the Koboldi, Legion Engineer, Master of Rings, and Chair of the Wolf, such that these titles can build any commission that creates a structure. This would mean they could commission any current or future military or civilian commission that makes a structure. This would exclude, for example, mustering an army or raising a navy. The Koboldi cheerfully points out that this will save the Senate a lot of trouble in the long run, as they won't have to keep tweaking the titles as they come up with new things to build. Obviously, any other restrictions about how and where and when they can build things will remain as per the individual titles. If the Senate does so before the conclave session on Saturday night, a Koboldi will try to make sure the Archmage of Summer has the document in their hands during the session. Monolithic Stronghold. Adamant considers the power of Monolithic Stronghold of the Gemstone Dragon. In return for aid, they ask that the Imperial Master of Works have their power to commission fortifications restored. Likewise, when it comes to the Monolithic Stronghold of the Gemstone Dragon, Adamant is prepared to examine the arcane projection and see if it can be improved. The Koboldi cautions that this might increase the magnitude of the enchantment. It's hard to say. In return, Adamant wishes to see the Senate show their commitment to building and maintaining mundane fortifications. They ask that the Archmage use their political influence to restore the power of the Imperial Master of Works to commission such structures. The Civil Service indicate that it would be possible to limit the number of times each season that this power could be used, in much the same way as the power of the Imperial Spy Master to build spy networks is limited. Again, if this is done before the last conclave session of the summit, the Koboldi will do their best to deliver a modified arcane projection to the Archmage during that time, although they can't promise to be successful. On Gnomes. Gnomes are inhabitants of the Summer Realm, part of Adamant's court. As a final note, which the Koboldi almost forgets to mention, there is the matter of gnomes. They are inhabitants of the Summer Realm that serve as excavators in the ranks of Adamant's court. They are simple yet powerful creatures of earth and stone that can swim through rock, and reshape it as they wish with their bare hands. The Koboldi is a little sniffy when they recount this. There are strong hints that their people and the gnomes do not get along well. Indeed, the little Silver Herald finished by saying that they don't see why Dima Vasilyevna Novosad would be worried about gnomes when they have so many delightful Koboldi to work with. Collecting stones. Adamant has also received a missive from the Stone Smith. It seems that the Archmage of Summer is not the only person who has requested parley with the unturned stone. The Stone Smith, Gemma Brightsmith, has also sought counsel from the Swordbreaker on behalf of their fellow smiths, through the auspices of an Autumn Eternal. Rather than reply in the same fashion as he does with an Archmage, however, it seems Adamant has chosen to send his heralds directly to the marches to present his response. You can find more detail about this in the Ground Wind of Fortune,